All right, let's talk with Justin Hokanson. As you can see on his chest right there, very proud member of Auburn Live. Is that a sticker, Hoke? Is that what you're wearing, or is that permanent?
That's permanent, man.
Okay.
Sticker.
Oh, I didn't mean to insult you. I had not seen the clothing. Yeah. I like it. Oh, and it's got On 3 under it, too. So if I had read, I would have known that it's permanent. Yes.
Congratulations, by the way, because Auburn Live was one of the top performing sites, according to Shannon Terry on 3 for 2023. True. So congratulations to you and the team.
Appreciate it, man. We've grown a lot. We're the only site, I think, in the top 10 of On 3 that started from scratch. Everything else was brought over. Those are all killer sites. But yeah, we started from zero, so we've done a lot. We appreciate all the support.
Yeah, I saw your TikTok when you had the Drake song playing in the background. Started at the bottom, and now we're up to the top.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's a good TikTok.
AuburnLive.com @_Jay Hokanson on Twitter. We'll get to basketball, but let's start with the football staff changes.
Wow, we're bumping basketball down.
Yeah. Carnell Williams and Zach Etheridge out. If I had told you that a year ago, you would have been very surprised by that. Were you surprised by it when it finally did happen?
Well, when it finally happened, no. I mean, I sort of warned our people for a couple of weeks before for sure that, hey, things are probably going to change. But you know, I mean, it's a little surprising, I guess, if you go back a year when Hugh Freeze was hired. Would you have told me in a year that those two guys wouldn't be on staff? I'd probably be a little surprised, yeah. But, you know, Hugh Freeze has to get in there and figure out his staff and sort of what works and what doesn't. And there was a lot of things that I think led to those two guys resigning and moving on. Of course, Zach's going to Houston, and Carnell, we'll see what his next move is. But regardless of sort of how they left, I think Hugh Freeze's goal now is to figure out what staff works best for him on and off the field. You heard him talk about wanting to build community and culture and all these things. So if that's what he wants to do, if he wants to build a strong community and culture to keep players in-house and not lose players to the portal and sort of this new age of college football, then his next moves need to be figuring out staff members that align with him across the board, on the field, that will help promote his culture. That's, I think, his mission right now. That's what he needs to focus on.
Hoke, obviously Auburn fans love Cadillac, not only for what he did on the field, what he did holding that team together last year. I'll never forget that A&M game. It was a championship-like atmosphere. Look, there's rumors all over the place. There's always rumors when guys leave. What's valid, what's not valid. You know, I really don't know behind the scenes, but all in all, do you think Hugh and Cadillac had a good relationship?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the room with them. I think they probably have a good relationship. I probably wouldn't say they had a great relationship, but I don't think there was bad blood or anything like that. I think maybe there were some things that maybe Cadillac would like to see done differently. And maybe there's some things that Hugh would like to see done differently. I would sort of categorize their coaching relationship as fairly normal. I mean, it's pretty hard to find somebody that you can get on staff that you align with across the board. There's going to be some things you vary on and differ on, and you just got to work through those. And so I would say there's things that they differed on and off the field, but I wouldn't categorize any of it as really, really bad in terms of how their relationship went together. I would categorize it as pretty normal disagreements in some of that stuff, but nothing severe.
So there are new hires. Let's talk about the new hires then. Derek Nix in as offensive coordinator, Charles Kelly as co-defensive coordinator. Just characterize these new hires, and I know there's a couple you're going to have to list off here, but what they bring to Auburn and just kind of how they fit into this whole picture.
Yeah, Ken Austin, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You promote him. He was already, he could already work with the quarterbacks some in his capacity last year. That's a guy that Hugh Freeze thinks a lot of. And I know that the quarterback, specifically Peyton Thorne, really, really like him. They get along with him well. So promoting him to quarterback coach makes a lot of sense. That's sort of an easy transition for what he wants to do on offense. Derek Nix is an interesting hire. I think Derek Nix is a guy that Hugh Freeze targeted last year. You know, we talked about his name last year when Hugh Freeze was looking for an OC. Makes a lot of sense. He's coached at Ole Miss with Freeze. He knows what he wants. We just talked about that. He knows what he wants on and off the field. So I think that's a big relief, I think, for Hugh Freeze. He's a really good recruiter. And so I think that makes a lot of sense, especially if you're going to take back over play calling, which I expect Hugh Freeze to do. So the Derek Nix hire makes a ton of sense. And look, you see what Lane Kiffin, the value he had on that staff. Lane promoted him to associate head coach a year ago. He let him run the program for a 24-hour period during the fall and coach a scrimmage of Derek Nix. So Lane Kiffin valued Derek Nix a lot. That guy's it was a valued member of that staff. So I think a really good hire for a lot of different reasons there for Hugh Freeze. With Derek Nix, of course, you bring back Wesley McGriff, and he kind of never left. And then, of course, Charles Kelly is the co-coordinator, who's a phenomenal recruiter. We all know that. He'll probably coach safeties and get that co-defensive coordinator role. I expect him to hire a defensive coordinator, and Kelly will keep that role. Kelly was rumored, could he be the defensive coordinator? I think only if Auburn would have missed on some guys, and they thought, okay, let's let him be defensive coordinator. But I think he'll be that co-role and coach safeties and recruit. Look, Derek Nix and Charles Kelly are no slouches when it comes to recruiting. Wesley McGriff isn't either. On top of a staff that already worked really hard to get the number 7 class in the country. So recruiting wise, I think they're going to be in pretty good shape.
And then, if it's a guy like Chris Kiffin down the road, you got to wait till his NFL season's over with. So that could be a reason on the hold up there. I want to move to basketball because I've seen.
I'll send DJ Durkin there too, by the way.
Yeah, who?
DJ Durkin. I would toss his name in there as well.
DJ Durkin, who was discussed to at one point to come to Alabama when Nick Saban was still the coach, and that buzz has fallen off quite a bit. Well-respected defensive guy, former head coach at Maryland. To basketball, I've seen every Auburn game except the Appalachian State game, and I watched one in a triple box up in Huntsville. Other than that, I've seen every Auburn basketball game, 2 in person, and there is something about this team, and I'm not saying you got a Jabari Smith on the floor, but I would start with just the chemistry of this team and how they go 10 deep and they work together. Tell me what you like about this team and how, at this point in the year, you think they compare to that Jabari team that sort of underperformed in the NCAA tournament, and then that team that got hot and went all the way to Minneapolis and Minnesota. This team seems to have a good DNA if you're an Auburn fan.
It does. There's a lot to like. I mean, they don't have a superstar. I mean, that's for sure. But what they have are 11 guys that they can throw out there and feel comfortable holding their own. Even Chris Moore, Leor Berman, Bruce Pearl feels comfortable putting them out there, playing some defense, give them 5 minutes, 6 minutes at a time. But you've got a deep bench and a lot of guys that do a lot of things. I mean, you've got between Janai Broome and Jaylen Williams and Chad Baker-Mazzaro, Denver Jones, there's a bunch of guys that can shoot the three, that can assist, that can rebound, that can block shots, and they all sort of do a little bit of everything, which makes them even more versatile, I think. I think the other thing that they're doing really well is they're relishing in their roles, which I think is huge for a basketball team to be successful. Everybody's got to play a specific part, I think, for a team to succeed. And what you're having is you've got KD Johnson and Chad Baker-Mazzaro and Dylan Cardwell and Trey Donaldson that are very much enjoying their role off the bench. Auburn has the best bench in the country statistically, and I think they're enjoying coming off the bench and being that energy and producing the way they are. And then, of course, you've got and I like the mix as well. Like Aiden Holloway is still a true freshman. You start him along with veterans like Broome and Jaylen Williams and Chris Moore. And then Trey Donaldson's a little bit more of a vet at point guard. He's only a sophomore. But then you start him off the bench with some newcomers like Chad Baker-Mazzaro, Chaney Johnson, guys like that. So I like the way they've sort of mixed the rotations, and it's working really well. They do a lot of things really well. They're shooting free throws extremely well. They're shooting the three better. They block shots. They're good around the rim offensively and defensively. The only their assist to turnover ratio is fantastic. They're top 10 in the country in assist rate. So they're sharing the basketball, which is something the team last year did not do very well. And so I think offensively and defensively, they're just really balanced in how they're going about it. Probably the only negative so far has just been consistency. If you look right now, they lead the country in first half scoring margin, over 14 points. They're plus 14 in the first half, and then they're about plus 3.5 to 4 in the second half. So they're really blowing teams out in the first half. Last night was another good example. They were plus 17 in the first half against Vanderbilt, and then they lost the second half by 2. That's probably the only thing that Bruce is probably not happy with and is pointing to his team. Hey, keep the pedal down, be consistent offensively and defensively, and we can do great things. But if you guys aren't consistent, we're gonna lose some games. But that's it. Other than that, they're a really balanced team. There's a lot of weapons and a lot of guys that can hit you on any night.
You mentioned Jaylen Williams a couple of times there, and if you look at points and rebounds year to year, it's not much of a difference, but watching him on the court, he seems to me the most improved player on this roster. Would you agree with that?
Well, yes, I would say his improvement is in mentality. He's always had the weapons. I mean, you can go back to when you saw flashes of him as a freshman with the Samir Dowdy team. That's how long he's been there. He had the ability, but he would have a good game and then he would disappear. And he'd have a good game and he'd disappear. He's not doing that this year. It's pretty consistent every night. He's showing up. I mean, he's got good ball handling skills. He can shoot the three. He's good around the rim, good touch. He's just a really talented player. And now you're seeing him every night assert himself. And you're seeing the coaching staff put him in positions to be the man. And now, I mean, he's had, I think, multiple 20-point performances recently. And in SEC plays, he's unbelievable. He's shooting like 70%. And over like the last 10 games, he's just been incredible. So I would say his shift has been mentality of be that man every night. Don't be it every third game. And that's the thing. Bruce mentioned it a couple weeks ago. Hey, we'll see if it keeps going. And so far it is. I think that's the biggest adjustment for him. He's a tough guard. I mean, he's a 4-man that can step out and shoot the three, that can bring the ball up the court, that can dish. And then he's creative around the basket. If you put somebody smaller on him, he can go down there as well. So he's a tough guard, and he's for sure one of the most valuable players on the team. Him and Janai are probably the two most valuable players on that basketball team.
You know, Hoke, I the night we did the Auburn game, I don't know if it was me, Jim Lance, or the Huntsville Mayor that said, you know, Cardwell, that guy could start for almost anybody. I mean, I'm not going to say everybody in college basketball, but I think Dylan Cardwell could start for a lot of teams.
I was talking to Stephen Pearl about that the other day on our show.
Yeah.
And this guy, to me, he's part of this DNA I'm talking about, that he plays his role perfectly.
And he's I know you said he's happy coming off the bench, and that's great. I mean, that's the type of guy you want. He's only averaging 15 minutes. I think this guy could start for a lot of people. It's crazy.
He is, and I wrote last week, the week they played A&M and LSU, he played 30 total minutes in those two games, 30 total minutes. So maybe a few more minutes than what like a starting center might play in a game. And in those two games, in that 30 minutes, he had 11 points, 11 boards, 5 blocks, 4 steals in a 30-minute span on the court.
And he leads cheers. He leads the student section in cheers too at home games. I mean, guy does it all.
He's a character. But I mean, you talk about a guy who's improved. That Dylan Cardwell from his freshman year, and I'll give Bruce a lot of credit. His freshman year, I specifically remember Bruce Pearl saying, "This guy's got a lot of raw ability. Just wait. It's just raw now, but he's got a lot of ability." And you're seeing it now. It's a little bit more controlled. It used to be out of control sometimes when you get the ball. You don't see that as much. He blocks shots. He's dunking. He's even dishing out some assists at a time. But yeah, bringing him off the bench is huge. I mean, he's he's more athletic than Janai Broome. Janai Broome's more talented as a player, but Dylan Cardwell's a more athletic center, and you're seeing him play with a little bit more control and really enjoying coming off the bench. And man, that's a heck of a center to come off the bench.
All right, AuburnLive.com, one of the fastest growing websites out there, part of On3 Sports, @_Jay Hokanson. Go subscribe today and get some great news from them on all things Auburn. Thank you very much for the time, Hoke. Always fun.
See you guys. Thanks.
All right, buddy. Take care. Hoke with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.